There are claims that this is one of the best homages to Omega Aqua Terra on AliExpress. Well, they certainly have got quite a few things right, but just because it has the looks, does it make it a great watch? Well, in this video, we'll find out. Hello and welcome to the channel. If you're already subscribed, thank you and very warm welcome back. And if you're new here, do consider subscribing, it does help us to bring you more reviews. I've got this watch from Corgeut official AliExpress store. It does come in a number of different colorways and 2 movement options. Price at the time of making this video was between $76 and $91 respectively. I went for a slightly more expensive Miyota option. Not that anything is wrong with seagull movements, however, the Miyota, in my experience, tends to be a bit more refined. I also went for the bracelet option, although Corgeut does sell this watch on a strap as well. Luckily, I do have a 20mm strap with crocodile clasp, so I will show how this Corgeut looks on that strap later in this video. As I usually do in this type of reviews, just in case you haven't seen any of them, I will go over dimensions and specifications of this watch, highlight things that I like and things that could be improved in my opinion, and of course draw a conclusion at the end. If you watched my unboxing video, you might recall that this Corgeut arrived pretty much bare bones. Bubble wrap, plastic packets and wrap around bracelet and the case. No paperwork or boxes of any sort. To be fair, in most cases in this price bracket, as long as the watch is well wrapped for transportation, the rest doesn't really matter. However, if you consider this watch for a gift or you'd really need a box for some reason, this is something to keep in mind. Dimensions. Case diameter is 41mm, the lug width is 20mm, the height of the watch is just over 11.5mm, nice and slim, especially taking into account that we have a screw-on see-through back case, which usually adds a bit of thickness to the watch. Lug tip to lug tip is about 47.5mm, also nice and compact, and because we have U-shaped inverted end links, this watch is very comfortable on the wrist. Bracelet tapers only slightly from 20mm down to 18mm at the clasp, and we have a butterfly clasp. At full length, the bracelet should cover about 8.5-inch wrist or about 21.5cm. And on a fully supplied stainless steel bracelet, this watch weighs about 155 grams. I cannot emphasize enough how comfortable this watch is on the wrist. It feels well balanced, and even though the case does not look very curvy, it hugs my about 7-inch wrist very well. I will also put on some shots of this watch on a 6.25-inch wrist later in this video. Dial. We have a horizontal line pattern on the dial, and no doubt similar to the Omega watch that this one is paying homage to. The lines on the dial of Omega Aqua Terra were apparently meant to represent decking on a yacht or boat of some kind, to emphasize the sense of adventure. We also have applied our indices and printed minute chaptering, where minutes are in red and digits are printed in blue at 5-minute intervals. Very clean execution, I must say. Further, we have a blue minute and our hands. I guess this is just painted blue as opposed to thermally blued hands, but nevertheless looks very nice and works well with the blue minute digits. Also, the hands are metallic blue, which makes them look blue or sometimes very dark blue, almost black under certain light angles. The same applies to the second hand. The second hand is metallic yellow, or rather light golden color, which makes it look different shades of yellow at various angles and light conditions. In terms of writing on the dial, it is well balanced in my opinion, and everything seems to be in the right places. Corgeut indicated a 50 meters of water resistance here, and I think this is some kind of hint to reflect the 150 meters of water resistance on Omega watch, rather than to indicate the water resistance that this watch is actually capable of. Because with a screw-down crown and screw-on back case, this watch could easily be capable of 100 meters of water resistance like other watches with similar features. Also, the word chronometer seemed to be a bit out of place in my opinion, and I did mention this in my unboxing video because usually it signifies a master chronometer certified movement, which of course the Miyota in this watch is not. And also we have a date at 3 o'clock position. The date is somewhat on the small side. not a showstopper, but I think it would be nice if it was a bit larger. And of course the lume. It is not that bright and there is definitely room for improvement here. It is a bit brighter on hands, which is always more useful, however, still, it does not last very long. Crystal. We have a nice and flat sapphire crystal here, and to eliminate any doubts, let's quickly test it. And yes, it is definitely sapphire. And for completeness, let's check the back glass as well. And as expected, it is not sapphire. In terms of anti-reflective coating, it does not look like there is a lot or actually any anti-reflective coating applied. Not a big deal from my perspective, the dial is very legible as is anyway. Moving on to the case, the finishing is really good. We have familiar twisted lugs with polished bevel edges and consistent horizontal brushing along the flanks of the case. We also have a fixed mirror polished bezel. The watch features unsigned screw-down crown. The crown has a good grip, it is well proportioned and easy to operate. Moving on to the back of the case, we have well-polished finish here. I like attention to details. All the edges are well finished, and this is even more interesting because this is on the back of the case, the area that is usually not visible, and the area that a lot of budget brands tend to finish very superficially. We have, of course, mirror-polished screw-on case back with an exhibition window through which we can see Miyota movement. As I mentioned at the start, I opted for Miyota movement variation of this watch. It looks like a Miyota movement caliber 8215. It is a reliable Japanese movement and beats at 21,600 beats per hour. It has a quick set date function, however it is not hackable. For the record, the alternative signal movement is hackable, that is, the second hand will stop when we fully pull out the crown to set the time, so if you definitely require this function, consider going for that single movement option. I've been wearing this watch for a few days now and it is quite accurate. We might as well check it on the time grapher, and yes, this is well within tolerances of this movement of -20 to +40 seconds a day. Bracelet. Okay, we have solid links and a very little taper, only about 2 mm. The links are polished in the middle and on the sides. The finishing is very good, similar to the case. The transitions between the faces are smooth and the bracelet is very comfortable on the wrist. Also, if we look at the side of the bracelet, we can see how the bracelet thickness tapers down towards the clasp. We have a nice and chunky links close to the case, and they are chunky, almost 4 mm wide, and then the thickness tapers down towards the clasp. Now we have a symmetrical butterfly clasp here, which does not allow for any macro adjustments. However, Corgeut installed a couple of half links, giving us a bit more flexibility with the bracelet length adjustment. This is a push-pin type bracelet, which is okay. There are also arrows on the inside of the links pointing in what direction to remove the pins, which is quite helpful. And here is this watch on my about 7-inch wrist. And here how this watch looks on a 6¼ inch wrist. Now, as I promised, here is also how this watch looks on a nylon or leather strap on my 7-inch wrist and on a 6¼ inch wrist as well. Okay, after spending more than a week with this watch, my initial impression hasn't changed. I still think it is a pretty good watch. The finishing is good for the price, the execution of the dial, bracelet and the case is done pretty well. So at the given price point of between $75 and $90 we get good-looking, robust and dependable watch. So if this is something that you are after, this could be a good potential candidate for your purchase. Now, what could have been improved on this watch? Well, few things actually. None of them were particularly deal breakers from my personal perspective, but there were improvement areas nevertheless. I think a signed crown and a signed clasp, for example, would be a welcome addition. And of course the lume. It is not that bright and there is definitely room for improvement here. And the wording chronometer on the dial. Although taking into account what type of spelling mistakes and mistypes we sometimes get on watches from AliExpress, this is actually maybe not as significant. What are your thoughts? Please let us know in the comments. And if you find this review helpful, of course, smash that like button and subscribe if you haven't already done so. And as always, thank you for watching and I will see you in the next one.